Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm a humble YouTube channel creator. I have quite a bit of content by now, and my YouTubes tell the story of how I got into making more YouTubes at one point. Like, I've made YouTubes for a long time, but then at some point I went to a gathering where it came to me that I should be putting my foot on the gas pedal with respect to YouTubes, and I started churning them out at a higher rate. So I'm just scrolling back on the screen through one of my views of my YouTubes. Another way, if you don't use YouTube and you're curious at all about what the back end looks like, you can look at it this way, kind of vertically, by scrolling down. Or if you pick your channel, which I think I just picked, it says it's transferring data. Here we go. To a different view, which has its shortcomings in that I can't see all my videos. If I start scrolling, if I click on, okay, maybe this has changed, and I didn't know I had that counted as a short. So if I just click on videos, I think it used to say uploads, popular, and like that. So I can scroll back. Okay, so that's YouTube. I just wanted to give you a picture where I do a lot of my stuff, this channel, right? So welcome. Don't have to subscribe. I'm more into bookmarking myself, right? Just when you find a video that you know you're going to want to go back to that's going to be useful. I think the bookmark feature of the browser is underused by a lot of people, including me. I use it more now because I'm always telling myself this. So let me go over ruminations on recent developments a little bit. I want to catch people up. Politically, we just had in the United States midterm elections, right? So people are all talking about that. And temporally, that's where we're at calendar wise. It's November 10th, 2022 right now. And we're in the middle of a war in Europe. By we, I mean humanity is in a pathological mental meltdown of various kinds at all times. And here we have more symptomology in Eurasia and a lot of craziness around it. And here I am, apparently off on another tangent, talking about UFOs, if you watched my last two videos. And why is that? Because I'm kind of invested in the Bucky Fuller stuff, have done a recent link from the BFI with help from web designers there to my own GitHub repo where I talk about synergetics. In other words, I feel like I've kind of, for the time being anyway, have a responsibility to continue to refine and define what the Bucky Fuller trajectory was, right? And not just based on his input, which is, of course, critical, but all what we're doing together with the Bucky stuff. And that includes, for example, the new biography of Bucky by Alec Navala-Lee, which does a lot to link the Bucky materials into the literature world, specifically of science fiction. But what is science fiction? That's something I also take up as a topic. And here I'm wiring in with the older Europe literature of the glass bead game. And in the Lithuanian based list of Andreas, I've been asking the question, how much does contemporary German philosophy in the writings of, say, Peter Sloterdijk, I always have trouble pronouncing his name. Some people say Peter Sloterdijk. Um, my apologies. So I don't speak German, but his three volumes, his trilogy, Bubbles, Globes, and Foam, have made it into English. And so I'm doing a lot to connect synergetics to his idea of spherical thinking and just the whole, what we're getting into as systematic thinking in the Fuller influenced lexicon has something geometric too, right? And that connection to German roots, that goes back because here's the other thing about Bucky is that he is very influenced, consciously so, by the New England Transcendentalists, not just because he's related genetically to Margaret Fuller, but he's related metaphysically. And here, another author I think we need to pull in, and I do, is one of my teachers actually at Princeton. He was my thesis advisor, along with another guy from Britain. And Rorty, if you know anything about, I'm not saying you should either, it's pretty abstruse, but if you know anything about academic stories, story of academia, philosophy is kind of split in certain ways, naturally, of course, and sort of Anglo-American schools of philosophy are very vested in like logic, a la Bertrand Russell, propositional calculus, modal logic, this and that. Kind of, we say the early Wittgenstein typified this kind of thinking. And then there's the so-called continental philosophy or European philosophy, which people are so up in arms around because it's more literary, it's more lucid in a certain way. It's kind of taken over the humanities a lot because the logicians are more like involved in computer science and so on. They've kind of abandoned the, I don't know, literary tradition to more literary people. This is kind of how I look at it. Books like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which Rorty liked, do something to, I don't know, map this out, restore the balance, change it into a different tension. It's not just continental versus Anglo American. That's maybe not the best way to think of it. Anyway, I'm steeped in all this background, so I've been going slowly through a recent posting to Medium where I try to help people take the story I just told you about academia and see how the Fuller stuff can fit in as kind of Rorty style leftism, if you like, in that it's not vested in Marxism. And how do I mean that Fuller is not vested in Marxism? First, he kind of put down the quote Robin Hoods. He wasn't one of those let's go after rich people and pull them down, right? He dressed like a rich person, you could say, abbreviating. But the whole point here is he was not an either or. Either the workers are the most entitled or the capitalist owners are the most entitled to the scarce resources of which there are not enough to take care of everyone. So it's got to be either or. We've got to fight, you or me, this whole thing over limited scarce resources. And Fuller was saying, a lot of the resources we want are metaphysical. They're not very costly. I mean, if you've got a nice nerd cave and you've got food, you're not burning a ton of energy. You're like a 100-watt bulb yourself in terms of a body. And then you've got all these other watts, and that's about it that you need to just be happy in the normal sense. And then you want to go out and go to bars, and I'm saying you do productive stuff with your life too. I'm not parroting anything here. I'm saying you're an engaged, intelligent human being. There's 8 billion of you is not too many. Whatever. We can sustain that. And this is what Fuller was talking about. Now, as I was ranting about in my last video, if people are forced into doing negative work against their own self-interest because of past reflex conditioning, that's what we're fighting. That's the good fight. That's the work in the Michelle Nicole sense of overcoming our reflex conditioning, right? Which includes our way of thinking, right? Reflex conditioning, knee jerk, doesn't just mean your knees, doesn't just mean your physical body is knee jerk. It means you immediately have the thought capitalism versus communism, or the world is a contest between socialism and capitalism. Why on earth would you believe that? There's so many ways that humans can organize their affairs and get things done. There's so infinite permutations. So always simplifying down to dichotomies and polarities is something we do for our benefit more than we do for the sake of thinking well or thinking in a logical manner. We artificially impose these either ors. Anyway, Fuller was like, it's not either the workers or the capitalists. That's not the fight. The owners and the not owners, whatever. We don't have to look at it that way. We have to look at it as overcoming our reflex conditioning. And so he wasn't a social Darwinist. He wasn't a eugenicist. He wasn't, these people are the most entitled because genetics goes here, ideology goes here, right? He wasn't trying to single out a subgroup within humanity and then build an ideology over why they should be the overlords. And that's what so many ideologies are. They're a brief as to why we should be in charge, right? And he didn't need to do that. He thought that was kind of new, actually, that you could be such a realist and write such like crunchy, number crunchy, mathy, sciencey stuff that seems so real, and have everybody be a winner in the sense that you're not trying to, deprive any big portion of humanity from resources and so on. It's like it's a new kind of science fiction, realistic utopianism, you could say. And there's a lot of suspicion of utopianism, right? Anyone who indulges in utopianism is a closet Marxist and blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying with the Rorty stuff, we can bypass the whole Marxism thing and come to leftism straight through American writers like Walt Whitman, the abolitionists, and the wish to create your own transcendentalist communities, whether they fail or not. That tendency, the wish to experiment with different lifestyles is already there. And it doesn't have to be on a vast scale. That's my thing. Is like, how are we going to do these millions of experiments if each one has to run on the super collider of like the United States or something? In other words, we don't need to take over whole countries and run entire nations on the basis of ideology ABCD or religion ABCD or whatever. We need to, as we've done throughout history, continue experimenting and learning from each other. And so a lot of the Bucky stuff is about setting up accessibility and affordability so that many lifestyles can be tried. That it's not a matter of let's all agree on the one best way. Why? Why would we ever want to? All right, so that's kind of libertarian, I suppose. It's like I'm not looking for the winning ideology. It's just like in the computer world. Python's a great language. I teach it, I know it, but I don't say it's the language we should all learn. Like, you don't have to learn Python and it's not going to take over the world. It's just one more computer language. Get over it. Just the same way I feel about religions and cultures. Who's going to win? Who's going to be the winner? Who's going to be the one last standing? It's like, why? Who wants that? Not me. All right, more later.